There are moments in life when the weight of expectation becomes so heavy that we simply freeze. We stand at the precipice of a major decision, a career shift, a creative endeavor, or a difficult conversation, and we are paralyzed by fear. Fear of failure, fear of public judgment, fear that our immense efforts will yield nothing but embarrassment. In the modern world, this paralysis often manifests as chronic procrastination, perfectionism, and burnout. We exhaust ourselves not from the labor itself, but from the mental storm of asking, what if it goes wrong? What if I am not enough? 5,000 years ago, an ancient text captured this exact psychological collapse on a grand scale. That text is the Bhagavad Gita, the Song of the Divine. The story opens not in a quiet monastery, but in the middle of a war zone, the field of Kurukshetra. Two royal families stand poised for a catastrophic battle. On one side stands Prince Arjuna, the greatest archer of his age, riding in a gilded chariot driven by Krishna. Arjuna is a master of his craft. Yet, as he looks across the battlefield, seeing his own kinsmen, teachers, and childhood friends arrayed against him, his hands begin to shake. His legendary bow slips from his grasp. He sinks into the floor of his chariot, overwhelmed by moral anguish and the horrific weight of impending outcomes. Arjuna looks at Krishna and says, "My limbs fail me, my mouth is dry, my body quivers, and my hair stands on end. I see no good in this slaughter. I do not desire victory, nor royalty, nor pleasures." Arjuna is not cowardly. He is paralyzed by attachment. He is obsessing over the consequences of his actions, mapping out every tragic future scenario until he is entirely stripped of his power to act in the present. The dialogue that follows between Arjuna and Krishna is not a call to war. It is an internal manual for the human soul. It is a profound psychological lesson on how to step out of mental paralysis, execute your duty with total focus, and remain unshakable regardless of the outcome. Let us step inside the ancient verses of the Gita, decode the philosophy of Nishkama Karma, and learn how to act without anxiety. To cure Arjuna's paralysis, Krishna introduces him to the heart of Vedic philosophy, the doctrine of Nishkama Karma. In Sanskrit, Nishkama means without desire or attachment, and karma means action. Nishkama Karma is the art of selfless, unattached action. Krishna delivers the central pillar of the Bhagavad Gita in chapter 2, verse 47. A single line that contains the ultimate antidote to modern anxiety. Karmanye vadikaraste mafaleshu kadachana, makarma phala heturbhur, mate sangots va karmane. Translated, it means, you have a right to your labor, but never to the fruits of your labor. Let not the fruits of action be your motive, nor let your attachment be to inaction. To understand this verse is to unlock total mental freedom. Krishna splits human endeavor into two distinct realms, your effort and the results of your effort. When you sit down to write a book, launch a business, study for an exam, or care for a loved one, you have total ownership over your focus, your discipline, and your integrity. That is your karma, your right to labor. However, whether the book becomes a bestseller, whether the business succeeds, or whether others appreciate your kindness is phala, the fruits. The fruits are governed by thousands of external variables, market forces, timing, human psychology, and pure chance. Most people live in reverse. They perform the labor purely to obtain the fruit. They write only for the views. They work only for the promotion. They love only for the validation. When you act purely for the reward, Your happiness is hostage to a future outcome you cannot guarantee. Every step of the work becomes painful, laced with the constant fear that your investment will yield no return. Furthermore, Krishna warns Arjuna against the opposite trap, apathy. When people realize they cannot control the outcome, they often say, "If I cannot guarantee success, why do anything at all?" Krishna calls this false renunciation. True wisdom is not giving up action, it is giving up attachment to the result while acting with maximum intensity. You dive completely into the work, giving it every ounce of your spirit while holding the final outcome with a loose, gentle hand. In the later chapters of the Gita, Krishna breaks down the mechanics of the human mind, explaining why we struggle so deeply with distraction and anxiety. He introduces the concept of the three gunas, the fundamental qualities or forces that govern nature and human consciousness. The first quality is tamas, the force of darkness, inertia, laziness, and ignorance. When tamas dominates your mind, you feel heavy, stagnant, and prone to endless procrastination. The second quality is rajas, the force of passion, restless energy, desire, and ambition. When rajas dominates, you are driven but hyper-anxious. You sprint from goal to goal, constantly seeking more, never satisfied, driven by an insatiable hunger for status and control. The third quality is sattva, the force of harmony, purity, clarity, and presence. Sattva is the quiet, luminous state where the mind is still, focused, and aligned with truth. Krishna explains that the modern person is constantly trapped in the storm of rajas, frenetic energy fueled by ambition and fear of loss. We hustle, we overthink, and we burn out because our energy is dirty, tied entirely to ego and outcome. To achieve unshakable focus, you must elevate your mind from rajas to sattva. You do this through karma yoga, offering your work as a sacred duty. Imagine treating every task in your daily life, whether it is designing a complex project, washing the dishes, or listening to a friend, not as a stepping stone to a future reward, but as a temple. When the work itself becomes your devotion, there is no room for distraction. There is no anxiety about the future, because your mind is entirely absorbed in the beauty of execution. As the Gita states, yoga karmasu kaushalam. Yoga is skill in action. When you release the outcome, you enter the pure state of flow. Your mind ceases its frantic internal chatter. You stop judging whether the work is good or bad in the moment and simply allow your highest skill to pour through you uninterrupted. The teachings of the Bhagavad Gita were not delivered on a quiet mountaintop. They were spoken on a battlefield. This means they are meant to be practiced in the middle of your daily chaos, deadlines, and responsibilities. Here are 4 concrete rules to practice Nishkama Karma starting tomorrow morning. Rule number 1, declare your process as the victory. Before you begin any significant task, mentally separate your goal into 2 parts, the execution and the result. Make a conscious pledge that your only definition of success today is whether you gave your full presence to the execution. If you sat down and did the work with integrity, you have already won. The market's reception, the grade, or the applause is merely secondary news. Rule number 2, practice work as an offering. Shift your internal language from "what can I get from this?" to "what can I give to this?" When you write, code, design, or speak, view your effort as a gift to the world, offered without demanding anything in return. When you view your work as service, ego vanishes, and with it, the paralyzing fear of judgment. Rule number 3. Surrender the results at sunset. At the end of the workday, practice a ritual of release. Close your laptop, shut your notebook, and mentally hand the outcomes over to the universe. Say to yourself, I have given my effort today. The rest is no longer my affair. By intentionally closing the book on your labor, you prevent work anxiety from bleeding into your rest, your relationships, and your sleep. Rule number 4. Become the witness. Throughout the day, when you feel panic rising over a deadline or an outcome, take a step back and observe your mind. Remember that you are not the temporary storm of anxiety. You are the silent observer beneath it. As Krishna reminds Arjuna, the spirit is never born, nor does it die. It is timeless, eternal, and indestructible. The results of this world will always shift like sand. Campaigns will succeed and fail. Opinions will rise and fall. Do not anchor your soul to the changing wind. Do the work with devotion. Release the fruits and live the philosophy.